Welcome to The Business on Radio Verulam, the voice of your local business community.
Hello, it's Sunday, it's 8 p.m, and yes, welcome to The Business. I'm Trevor Merriden with the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. Now, if I said to you, raindrops on roses, what would you say back? Whiskers on kittens? Bright copper kettles? Warm woolen mittens? Until recently, you might not have said a gift shop in the centre of St Albans, where 100% of the profits go to charity. We've got Alison Bainbridge, MD of Raindrops on Roses, in our studio in a few minutes to explain what it's like to run a social enterprise. She's going to be joined on our panel later by Shoobert of My Incubator and Wenta to see why so many social enterprises are springing up, and whether we're about to see also in our panel discussion whether there's going to be a backlash against working from home following the news from Yahoo this week. Then we have Janice O'Neill, who'll be telling us about two very different types of networking group, Business Buzz in Hemel and the Hertfordshire Business Club. And of course we've got our diary items coming up as well. That's all to come a little bit later, but I've got my old mucker back, Victoria Scott, off from holiday. How are you?
Very well indeed, very well. We had a great time skiing, and it's good to be back. Very good to be back.
Fantastic. I mean, it's good to have you back. Where did you go?
We were in the Dolomites in Italy. It was absolutely fabulous. Lots of sunshine, best snow for loads and loads of years. But probably more importantly, it was with some very good friends, and so lots of really great company. And Italy's such a wonderful country. They really are so very passionate and so very stylish about absolutely everything.
Yes.
You know, whether it's food or fashion or what have you, they just seem to get it right. Believe it or not, we had the most fantastic fish you could ever imagine, right in the middle of the mountain. You know, I mean, we can't seem to get great fish in St Albans, and they seem to get great fish up a mountain, which is evidently helicoptered in every other day from the coast. And then the other thing which I absolutely loved was that the ski guides in Selva were decked out in Prada. The ones down the valley in Santa Cristina were decked out in Armani.
Lovely.
What a fantastic advert for your own brand.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. We've been going for many, many years now, and just every year.
Well, you're very welcome back. Roma has disappeared for this issue. She's off celebrating a family birthday. Now, you know we always get right to the cut and thrust, a serious business show that we are. And just to show you how serious we are, I'd just like to play you a little clip from last week, Vicky, about just to show you what you were missing.
What I missed.
What you missed. Here we go.
We've been speaking about USPs. Now, we talked earlier about the fact, Jazz, that you'd brought a little box in, and I believe your key USP, or one of your USPs, is sitting in that box. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yes. I've brought a little sample to try of one of our cocktails. It's called the Porn Star Martini.
Sorry, say that again.
The Porn Star Martini.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah. But it was it's been one of the biggest sellers we've had. We change our menu 2 or 3 times in a year, and this is the one drink that we just can't get rid of. It's just constantly, even when we have taken it off, it's still been the number one. Just because everyone wants it, everyone kind of knows about it. So I'll mix it up for you.
Can I ask, why is it called Porn Star Martini?
Well, actually, I mean, it's not actually created by us. It was created by a friend of ours who had a couple of bars in London.
Right.
And he kind of came up with it one night, and it was a massive seller in his bar. And so we asked him, said, look, we've got a bar, can we
nick the idea?
Can we take it? Can we take it? And he said, yeah, go, take it. So,
I've
the rest is history.
I've just pulled up a list of cocktails. I mean, they've got some incredible names, haven't they? There's the sort of the Horse's Neck, the Incredible Hulk, the Orgasm, the Porto
This is turning
Flip.
into a different show.
And it was that kind of thing, Victoria, that you missed last week.
I can't believe it.
I know.
mean, that's just so not fair. I seem to recall that some crazy cocktail that was called a long, slow, comfortable screw up against a wall.
You sure that was a cocktail?
Like
Anyway,
damn! I should have been here.
Anyway, so you missed a good one. There was Jazz sort of shaking the cocktails at the end of the show, but. Back here you are in the studio, and it's fantastic to have you back. What's caught your eye in the news?
Well, as normal, I haven't lost my Pollyanna hat. Certainly not slipped in any way whatsoever. And I was with a client earlier in the week, and a really familiar situation sprang up. And I bet there's loads and loads of people out there listening that will be very familiar with this. I was working with this client, and they were really in the doldrums regarding their order book. And as usual, they were blaming the economy. And I was sort of trying to figure out how to get him out of this frame of mind when a really old marketing story came to mind that I shared with him. And I'm really sorry, everybody out there, if you've heard it all before, but I think it's really worth repeating because it's a great example of the difference between positive and negative thinking. So as the story goes, a few years ago, there were two salesmen. They were sent by a very well-known British shoe manufacturer to Africa to investigate and report back on the market potential. So the first salesman reported back, there is no potential here, nobody wears shoes. And the second salesman came back and said, there is massive potential here, nobody wears shoes. And it really, the point is really, the simple fact of the matter is that the way that you approach a situation has such a huge bearing on the outcome. And if you or your salesman are lucky, or if you've got lucky enough to have a team of salesmen, and you start to believe that there's no hope and your future is out of your hands, then you really could be in deep trouble. So, and I think actually, if I remember rightly, it's somebody like Henry Ford who said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Needless to say, the client felt a bit sheepish after we'd gone through this story, and we got on with the job of finding him some business. But, really it was just one of those stories that it must be happening all over the place. It's very, very difficult times. There isn't, money is tight, and there are lots of companies having, difficult business environment. And sometimes you have to sort of go back to the old stories and the basic stories to remind yourselves of what you should be doing.
And you're absolutely right. Sometimes the difference between survival or not is the mindset. Is the optimism, the way you're actually looking at a particular problem. Sometimes you can be in a market where where it is hopeless, things like that, but optimism gets you a long way. I think.
Yeah, I think we all know ourselves. If we're in front of somebody that's trying to sell us something, if they're passionate and they really believe and they've got lots of energy, and and there's a sort of passion and optimism about them, you're much more likely to listen. You're much more likely to sort of take it on board. I'm not talking about pushy second-hand car dealers, but just somebody that really likes what they do.
Yes.
I remember a while ago around Christmas being in the markets interviewing people. So many other people just loved what they did, whether it was making sausages or making jewellery. They were just passionate about it, and you could tell, they got people buying stuff.
That's right. I remember you were out there just in the run up to Christmas, and there was the man with his sausages and the various other events. But the thing they had in common was that they were you could tell they were out in the sort of the fresh air, full of enthusiasm and vigour. I mean, what a difference that makes.
Well, that is, a smiley face gets a long way, particularly when everybody else is looking a bit miserable. It's it can really add a massive benefit to your business. Just if you feel positive, if you look positive on the phone. I'll tell you, I've run telesales teams and done telemarketing in the past, and people can hear the energy in your voice.
Yeah.
And if you're fed up and you've made the 20th call and everybody's said no, the client will hear that.
Yes.
Actually, they always sort of say you're more likely to make your next sale after, when you've put the phone down on the last one. But you're not going to get that first one unless you've got that energy, optimism and sort of enthusiasm.
Absolutely. Have you got another story or shall I do one?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, there was something else I just couldn't resist, actually.
Go on.
And this was, and I'm sure some people saw it in the papers. There's a team that is heading to Mars, and it's led by a millionaire and former space tourist. I didn't know there were former space tourists.
That must be a very small band of people.
It must be. A chap called Dennis Tito, and he plans to send a tested couple to Mars and back on a privately funded mission. Now, that in itself is pretty exciting and interesting, and you might be thinking, what on earth is that all about, and why is it to do with business? But the lady that's actually coordinating it has told the BBC News last week that the mission planners want a crew to consist of an older couple. whose relationship would be able to withstand the stress of living in a confined environment for 2 years. And I just thought, what a great shot in the arm for the older generation. And who said ageism was only allowed in one direction? So they're recruiting an older couple. I didn't think you were allowed to, have any ageism in recruitment these days.
Well, the older I get, the better all this stuff sounds, I think. And I mean, what caught my eye this week was a really nice piece from Lisa Bates, who some of you will be familiar with from the Chamber of Commerce in the Hearts Advertiser this week, saying, what would you do if your clients went elsewhere? And it made the point that customers are one of, if not the most important part of any business. Your customers are your lifeline to profits, respect, reputation, and no business can survive without them. But sometimes it's very hard work to learn how to retain them and to keep them coming back for more. And you factor in also the fact that every customer you get, you may lose a percentage of those customers during the course of your business. And so retaining the customer base is so important to profits and business status in the community. Now, I was thinking about this, and I think all of this is absolutely true. A nice piece by Lisa. But sometimes, just occasionally, although we don't like to admit it, there are some clients that actually we might, and we perhaps should be brave as businesses in actually saying, this is a client actually I could do without, because they might be a client that sucks in time, is maybe makes the people who work for you feel not very good about what they do, and actually perhaps it's slightly more risky, but you might want to use some of that time to actually go out and find a better client. So I'm just going to throw that little hand grenade into the conversation there, because I just wonder sometimes whether that's always true. Everyone says the customer is king, things like that, and I think they're certainly very royal, but
they behave like royalty sometimes.
But let me throw that one at you, Vicky.
Well, it's a very, very difficult one. I think it's a very difficult one, particularly when you're self-employed. And I think one of the first lessons that you learn when you're self-employed is that you have a tendency to say yes to everything. You take everybody on, you work your socks off. Most people who are halfway decent, and I remember Clare McAnulty saying, one of the most important things is to sort of over-deliver and take the work, because, your best form of the next job is going to be a testimonial. But one of the most difficult things also when you're self-employed is to say no, and to say, enough is enough, and to actually say, no, I'm not going to do any more until you actually pay me. And all of these very, very difficult things that are incredibly important. And it's something that it's difficult to do, and it takes a few years. It certainly took me a few years to start saying no.
Yes.
But once I did, the release was fantastic, and it made me realise that this is exactly why I came out of corporate life. When I was working at the Mail on Sunday or wherever it was, I couldn't say, no, I'm not going to talk to the marketing director of Ford because I don't like him.
Yeah.
It was just part of my job.
Yeah.
And you had to get on with everybody, and you had to be everybody's friend and all this. And actually now, I don't.
Yeah.
If I don't like somebody, then I don't actually have to work with them. I have to go and find somebody else to work with.
Well, Vicky, we've got to surprise you because we've got the marketing director of Ford on the line now. No, I'm just joking. We haven't.
I hope he's not listening. I know you're a really nice chap.
Anyway, we're going to have a break for a few announcements. Then after that, it's Raindrops on Roses, and we'll tell you all about that in just a second.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
The Abbey Line connects St Albans Abbey train station at the bottom of Holywell Hill with Watford Junction, and was one of the UK's first official community railways.
The community rail concept was designed to help create a more sustainable future, to reduce the cost of running the line without compromising safety or service, and to involve local people more closely in the development of their railway.
For 150 years, the Abbey Line has been taking people between St Albans and the centre of Watford and beyond.
It continues to do this, and all for at most £6.60 return, and in only 16 minutes.
For more information, visit their website, which is abbeyline.org.uk.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
For alternative views, news and interviews, join Aisling Kay on Alternative Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Yes, this is The Business. It's 16 minutes past 8, and now we're going to have our interview slot. And Vicky, who have we got in the chair?
Well, I'm really pleased to welcome Alison Bainbridge, who's the Managing Director of Raindrops on Roses. And we won't all go into the song, but what a great name! Great name. I wish I could sing, but I know all the words to it as well. Really, really big welcome to you. It sounds like a fantastic enterprise. So what we want to do is to find out an awful lot more about it. It's a social enterprise, and I understand not too much about this, but principles of this type of operation can be quite complicated. So what would be really, really great is if over the next few minutes we can just understand, why you got involved. I'd love to find out how you came up with the name, because that's really, really interesting and fun. What it's all about, how it works, and just a little bit more behind the business. So, first of all, how did you decide on Raindrops on Roses?
Well, it's a name that sort of knocked around for a long time. We talked about opening a gift shop, and lots of us came up with various different names, and I think it's the one that kind of stuck, and I guess because we carried on liking it, we went with that in the end. We had lots of other ideas, but it's a nice name, happy name, talks about gifts, I think, and nice things. So
favourite things, of course, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was there an association with the Julie Andrews song, or was it not really?
Not at all, no.
Right, okay, right.
It does seem to work incredibly well, and that principle of using test names and seeing which one sticks is quite a good way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think names can tire, can't they? And they can sound faddy. But this stuck with us for 3 or 4 years, and we came up with the logo very early on as well, and we had it on the wall and we kept looking at it, and that stuck as well. So yeah, it just felt right.
So tell us about social enterprise. Can you briefly explain the principles behind it?
Yeah, so Raindrops on Roses was set up as a pledge by me. So I went to a quiz night. People asked people to stand up and make pledges of something they could do to make money for Hearts Against Cancer. And I guess I put my hand up foolishly and promised to open up a gift shop, giving all the money to profits for Hearts Against Cancer. It actually took us years to find a shop, several years. And during that time, I kind of kept saying it will happen one day, and we have stuck with it, and there it is now on the high street.
That's that's the sort of thing that people do when they've had, one glass too many.
But there's
be honest.
Yeah, you wake up the next morning and you think, ooh, that's interesting.
Was that me? Was it? So at that point in time, did you know that it was going to be a social enterprise? Did you understand that was the way of doing it?
I did, because I also run a business in St Albans, so it's our company pledge in a way. So I stood up.
Which business is that?
It's ABA Research.
Right.
So it's business. It's employs about 80 people. None of our clients are local, so it's always felt like we should do something to give something back to St Albans, because we kind of sit here silently doing our work. And so we do market research for retailers, so it seemed like a good thing for us to set up a shop and kind of show that we do actually know something about retail, and we could actually have a shop and something that we could tell our clients about as well.
Right.
And how does social enterprise actually work?
Well, for us, it works in that we as a business pledge quite a lot of our time, and we as a business have funded the shop in terms of the rates, the rents of the building. We are buying all of our products, as many locally as we can. We pay good money for those products because we want to encourage people to produce things locally. And then all of the profits that we make is then going to be given to Hearts Against Cancer. So first 48 days, we made £15,000. We're well on our way to the next £15,000.
That's fantastic. That's really... And so you used the knowledge that you have through your research company into retail to set up... But I mean, research into retail and doing retail are two quite different things, aren't they?
They are.
So
it's much easier doing research.
How did you bridge that gap?
With a paintbrush and... And yeah, I mean, literally, we have created the shop ourselves, really. So with a carpenter and lots of pictures and mood boards, we in 2 or 3 weeks, kind of put the shop together. And it is a lovely shop in a really great location.
Right.
So it lends itself perfectly to this.
It is a great location. I was in there yesterday, actually, and it was just really nicely laid out and perfect position. If people don't really know who know where it is, I mean, it's just sort of Verulam Road, isn't it? The top of Verulam Road, near those arches that go through to the cathedral.
Yes, just opposite the clock tower.
Yeah. And lovely location and some really good things in there, I thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What made you decide on the sort of content of the shop?
Well, I mean, we're keen to do something local. We wanted to do something that plays to all, I think, of the trends at the moment. So locally produced, British products, handcrafted. And, really important for me, I was keen to try and get people started as well. So we've had quite a lot of people, whether they're jam makers, and literally we're the first outlet that has sold their products.
So it's more than just money to charities. It's actually a whole community,
a little
exercise.
Ecosystem. I'd like to see it as. Yeah,
that's a really lovely way of describing it. In terms of the sort of business principles behind setting up a social enterprise, I'm sure that there's red tape and there's all sorts of things that you have to register. I mean, is it complicated? Do you need lawyers? Do you need you were sort of raising your eyebrows. Was it dead easy?
Well. I think I have just concentrated on making a nice shop with nice products, engaged some amazing people, and for us the hard thing was finding the shop, engaging the volunteers, not the legal part of it.
Right.
We just concentrated on making something that people would want to shop in and buy things from.
And then the rest sort of
follows, and that's true of most businesses, I think, doesn't it?
So message going out there is, don't be frightened. Just get on and do it, and you can get the rest sorted.
Yeah, get on and do it as long as the thing you're doing is good. And I think that's what you were saying earlier, wasn't it?
Because retail wouldn't be the first thing that you would think of in terms of trying to make massive profits for anybody at all in this sort of economic climate.
Yeah.
So. But obviously the background that you've got...
For me, it's more than just profit, though, because it's a shop on the high street. In the shop, we have literature about cancer awareness. The whole premise of Hearts Against Cancer is about early detection. Don't be scared of the first symptoms. Get to the doctors. So for me, the shop is a shop window on all of that as well. And so other forms of business wouldn't have had that, that vehicle.
Of course. With social enterprise, there are lots of charities out there. There's loads and loads of cancer charities, and a lot of people, including myself, run for this one and that one.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm never absolutely sure which one I'm doing what for, or the difference. And sometimes it worries me that they're all fighting for the same pot. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you establish a different perspective for the clients, so they know what's happening to the money and where it's going, and the fact that there is that money that's going to the right place, because you do sort of worry sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think I was really keen, for personal reasons, to do something that was about early detection of cancer. And a lot of the charities that are around cancer are either right at the back end, almost hospices or research, but there's very little about early detection. And everything we read and understand indicates that early detection makes such a difference. So I guess we decided to have this hold-in charity of Hearts Against Cancer, which then allows us to direct the money to things that we feel really are focused on early detection. So all of the early money is going to a scanner appeal and to literature for GPs, so that they are better at picking up the early signs of cancer.
Have you found a sort of a degree of interest when people come into the shop? I mean, people are often wanting to know where the money is going to, and so on. Do they just generally come in, buy stuff or not buy stuff, or do they actually ask for detail on?
They ask for detail on it. There's a lot of sharing of personal stories. I mean, I think the thing that struck me more than anything about the shop is just the atmosphere in the shop. It's so warm. People come up, they tap you on their shoulder, they tell you about their treatment. And the volunteers are absolutely part of that as well. And so, that's a really important part of it. as well.
I've got to come in.
You
Really,
have.
I know. It's all
Perfect for you.
How long has it been open?
So I think the 48th day was Christmas Day,
Wow.
and then we've been open since then. So a couple of months on. So it's only 4 months old so far.
But it sounds as though you're already contributing an enormous amount of money to the charities and to the.
I think the thing that struck me is it's already got a life of its own. The volunteers come every week. They've made friends with one another. The two people running it. The producers come in. It's absolutely. I was really fearful it could take over my life, but it actually really hasn't, because so many people are contributing on so many levels to it.
So you would still call yourself a researcher rather than a retailer.
Exactly. Sadly, have to do the day job.
We've all got to do the day job. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. You're going to stay with us for the panel a little bit later. We're going to have a few announcements, and then we're going to be hearing from Janice O'Neill.
If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to the business. Now, we've basically been talking to a lady called Janice O'Neill, and she's been telling us about two networking groups. One's called Business Buzz in Hemel Hempstead, and the other's called the Hertfordshire Business Club. And they're two very different types of networking group. And so we started off by asking Janice to tell us about the sort of slightly more informal one, perhaps the Business Buzz in Hemel Hempstead. And this is what she told us.
It's for very local businesses to get together and learn about each other on the high street. We're hoping people won't even have to drive to get there, and it's a drop-in network club where you drop in, have a cup of coffee, share a few business cards, drink another cup of coffee, and then just go back to your office, knowing who your next door neighbour is, knowing somebody locally that can help you in your business, or you could help them in their business. It's very informal. You don't have to stand up in front of lots of people and talk for a minute or 5 minutes. It's not that scary. It's just terribly friendly. And because I believe in it so implicitly, I can introduce every new person that comes in to anybody in the room. And if they're struggling with networking, I can see that immediately and I can help them. And other people will help them too.
So this is very informal.
Yes.
It's not membership based.
No, not at all.
I know that you're the chair or the whatever it's called. What's it called? The host of the Hemel group.
Yes.
And you recommend it for small businesses that are local to that particular venue.
Yes.
How much does it cost to go on?
It's £5 on the door.
And it's really just about a quick informal chat to meet your neighbours almost.
Yes.
And through developing those relationships, you believe it develops business?
Absolutely. In my case, there were two people that came to a particular business buzz, and they recognised each other vaguely. And the question was, "Are you the gentleman that drives the Mercedes?" And the gentleman said, "Yes. Do you drive the KA?" And she said, "Yes. How long have you worked next door to me?"
Goodness.
11 years.
Crikey.
And they'd never spoken. But at my business buzz, they were able to talk to each other, exchange business cards. One was an IFA, an independent financial
advisor.
Yeah, thank you. And the other lady was a bookkeeper. And do you know what? They've started to work together.
Brilliant.
And I love
That's what
that,
networking's
bringing
all
people
about.
together.
So there are a lot of people that are terrified of networking because of that 60 seconds. So this sort of business buzz sounds like a real antidote to those traditional networking groups.
It's a very gentle introduction to more serious networking. And there are serial networkers out there that will go to any kind of networking, breakfast, lunch, evening session. And it's an absolute skill going to all of those. And there are so many tips to learn: how to stand, what words to use, what your business card should look like, how you present your business within a minute. And I love helping people through that. So brand new people that come to my business buzz, I make sure they're buddied up so that they don't feel lonely and in a corner frightened to come out.
Are there any businesses that networking's not suitable for?
Every business needs to network, and you might be doing it without realising that you're doing it. even in a social environment, especially men, and what do you do? Whereas ladies say, do you have any family?
Yeah.
But in the business world, it's all about what do you do. So people are networking in a bar. It doesn't matter where. So why not do it a bit more formally, but with help by coming to my business buzz in Hemel Hempstead?
How do people find out about when? Is it on every week? Is it what's?
The business buzz is on every week in different areas, and we're hoping to roll it out to the whole of Hertfordshire very soon. So we've got one in Harpenden, my one in Hemel Hempstead, one in St Albans and Watford, and we're launching in 2 weeks' time one in Hertford. Then we're looking at Tring and Hitchin. It's going to go.
And you can find it on the website, the dates and the places.
Yes, on the Business Buzz website. Yes,
that's brilliant. So it's something that's suitable for everybody. You don't have to be frightened about going along.
No,
you haven't got to
come and
stand up and
No.
say a minute about what you do. It's just
No.
about going and have a coffee and a chat.
Yes.
And that was Janice O'Neill. I found her very compelling and engaging to listen to. She's sort of omnipresent in the networking world, isn't she, Vicky?
Yeah, she's a fantastic lady, and there's a lot of people that I'm sure who are listening that do know Janice very well. She's also actually in the past done some great work with the Grove Hospice. So we were sort of talking about charity work earlier. But Janice is a fantastic networker. Loads and loads of people know her, and the Business Buzz is really working fantastically well for people who want something that's a little more informal. And if you're absolutely terrified, then just go the extra mile and go to Janice's in Hemel, because she's an absolutely wonderful hostess.
There are other networking groups available, though, I always say. So we always make sure we say things like that. Now, on to the debate, our heated debate. Every week we debate the big business issues, and we're welcoming back Alison, who's stayed around from Raindrops on Roses, and of course we've got Alex Shoobert from Wenta and My Incubator. Now, for listeners who weren't around sort of last time Alex was on, Alex, could you just explain a little bit about those two organisations, what your sort of link is?
Yes, of course. So Wenta is actually a social enterprise as well. Our purpose is to help people start up businesses. So we do one-to-one advice, we do training courses, and we also have the My Incubator, which is, I run the one in Stevenage, and it's sort of a big open plan hot desking office. So we've got lots of people there who are starting up their company, who are using that as their office, so that they're there, they've got sort of support from each other, support from me, and we're sort of helping them to kind of get going much quicker than they would normally. Right.
And so it seems quite appropriate that one of our topics that we should be debating is why are so many social enterprises springing up? I mean, just as an introduction, if there are people out there who still aren't quite sure what a social enterprise is, I mean, they use business methods to tackle problems in society, and many are thriving with twice as many reporting growth last year as conventional businesses. In the last month alone, a new social enterprise academy has opened. The government has announced £1 million funding for young social entrepreneurs, and a major bank has agreed to fund 500 grants worth up to £25,000. And they're also bucking the gloomy economic trend. And last year, 58% of social enterprises grew, compared with 28% of mainstream small and medium-sized businesses. So over twice the amount are growing. So if I could start with you, Alex, perhaps, why do you think so many are springing up? And is there a change in values in society? What's behind it, do you think?
Well, I think it's just that people are spotting a gap where there's somewhere that there's a market failure and something's not being provided. Yes. So I think it's a couple of things. I think it's that there's particular issues and gaps that are there that people are spotting. But I do think, hopefully, that we're all becoming a bit more interested generally in sort of corporate social responsibility and sort of the impact that businesses have on the communities and the environment and things like that. So I think it's if it's something that you're looking to do as a business that you're very passionate about, you've spotted something that you really want to improve. Yes. I think that's what's attracting people to set up social enterprises. Right,
Alison. Now you work in a business alongside Raindrops or Roses. I mean, can you just tell us a little bit more about your motivation in terms of the connection? You talked a little bit about it in the interview. I mean, just so that people can get inside the minds of, say, business people who are setting up social enterprises about what's driving you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me there was a personal reason. We'd lost a niece at a very young age, and that meant that I always felt passionate. I wanted to do something in the future to help other families not have to go through that kind of experience. But I do think social responsibility is changing the way businesses think, and I think at the moment businesses can't grow as much as they were in the past. The economy is quite flat. So you have to judge business success in other ways. It's not just about making money. And I think as people do other things and judge businesses in different ways, they start to enjoy that measure of success and then want to do it more. We're just learning to enjoy different things. And I think that's the same for consumers as well, that maybe 5-10 years ago we used to just enjoy spending money and we'd spend it on a credit card. Yes. Whereas now we're learning actually to pay off our credit cards and enjoy getting something out of other things.
So is this, though, a sea change in the way we think? Is it something that's now irreversible? We've evolved as good human beings, or will it all just disappear when times are good again, and suddenly profit become the major motive, and we'll stop thinking about this sort of thing?
Maybe, but I think life is never going to quite go through the boom it went through. Yeah. That retail boom. It's not going to repeat itself. It's not going to repeat itself for quite a long time. Hopefully, we've learned good habits from all of this, and they're good habits that I think are making us feel better.
Right.
And so I think that means they are more likely to stay.
Right. Do you agree with that, Alex?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that we are moving more and more towards that. Like say, we're more interested in what we're buying and what's, what kind of company that is. Is it a good company? Yeah. Where am I putting my money? And there's a lot of that around. And I think, hopefully, that kind of awareness means that a lot of the companies are becoming sort of more accountable. They've got to be a bit more transparent about the way they operate, whether they're a social enterprise or not. They've got to show that they're being responsible, because I think people will begin to. Yeah. Not want anything to do with them if they're not. Yeah. If they're not operating responsibly. I think
you picked a word there that really struck with me there: transparency. I mean, there's so many bigger businesses these days are coming a complete cropper by not being transparent and open. They make mistakes. Whether you're talking about horse meat or a product recall or whatever it is, it's those that are being economical with the truth at the start, and then having to tell their story again several times until they suddenly lack credibility. And there seems to be a sort of a kind of very strong sort of ethical thing going through. I mean, is this a trickle down from big businesses to small businesses? Maybe. Don't know. We none of us know. Vicky wants to.
Well, I just wanted to sort of chip in there, because I think one of the other things that's dramatically different these days is the power of the people. Because with things like Twitter and Facebook and all of these other ways whereby the majority can very, very easily and very quickly completely destroy something, however big it is, if they get it wrong. And this is the sort of generation that where the public voice is so much louder than it's ever been. So although I think it's wonderful that that people are now starting to have consciences, and that businesses are starting to look, to be transparent, and there's a lot more, emphasis on community. There's also that pressure which says they've got to be better, they've got to be transparent, they've got to be ethical, because if they're not, then they're going to be found out, and they're going to be dead meat if they're not careful, because the public will cry out, and can cry out very, very loudly.
And I suppose, Alison, there's a thing that the people in your shop, and I was only in there for about 5 minutes yesterday, but they all, I say all of them. There were only two people in there, but two staff, but they seemed to be really enthusiastic. I said hello, and they sort of hello, they boomed back, and they were sort of telling me about what they had in the store, and you could just see that they were sort of oozing enthusiasm in a way perhaps they might not have been in another sort of set of retailing circumstances.
Yeah, I think it's almost the opposite what you say. I don't know that big business is small businesses are learning from big business. I almost think big businesses are learning from small businesses, because there's an honesty and fairness and trust that's got to be inherent in a small business. Otherwise, it is going to fall apart very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to our second topic in just a moment.
Join Simon Carver on Fridays from 6:30 p.m. for the Film Guide. We look at the UK cinema box office top 10, a selection of the new cinema releases and the best of the week's films on free-to-air TV. That's Fridays from 6:30 p.m. on West Hart's Drive Time with Danny Smith, exclusively on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
The Abbey Line connects St Albans Abbey train station at the bottom of Holywell Hill with Watford Junction and was one of the UK's first official community railways.
The community rail concept was designed to help create a more sustainable future, to reduce the cost of running the line without compromising safety or service, and to involve local people more closely in the development of their railway.
For 150 years, the Abbey Line has been taking people between St Albans and the centre of Watford and beyond.
It continues to do this, and all for at most £6.60 return, and in only 16 minutes.
For more information, visit their website, which is abbeyline.org.uk.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
Hi, I'm Kathy Weston.
And I'm Lydia El Khoury.
Join us every Thursday evening on The Parent Show for expert interviews, local information about caring for children in West Harts,
and a What's On guide you just can't afford to miss. We're here every Thursday between 8 and 9 p.m. on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
Don't forget to tune in!
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Yes, you're listening to The Business. It's now 8:44. We're in the middle of a panel discussion, and we've been talking about social enterprises. We're going to move on to a different subject now. It's the issue about working at home. Now, this week, Yahoo banned its workers from working at home. And the question in our mind is this the start of some sort of backlash against home working, or just an isolated, misguided gaffe? Yahoo has banned its staff after many years of us predicting working from home as a future for everybody. I mean, suddenly this memo comes around from the Human Resources Department in Yahoo, dropping into people's inboxes, banning them from working at home, and it prompted anger, reportedly, from many of its recipients. The memo said, some of the best decisions and insights come from hallway and cafeteria discussions, meeting new people and impromptu team meetings. Speed and quality are often sacrificed when we work from home. Now, Yahoo's plans to get staff back into the office from June this year, and it's thought to be driven by the new chief executive there. Various other reaction. Richard Branson, who apparently spends much of his time working on in Necker Island in the island of the Caribbean. Yes, exactly. So he obviously likes home working. Called it a backward step in an age where remote working is easier and more effective than ever. And there are certainly signs that the number of people working from home is on the increase in the UK. A total of 59% of employers who responded to a survey just the year before last were offering teleworking up to 13%. Up from 13% in 2006. There's various other statistics banding around, but enough of statistics. Let's talk opinions here. When you heard this, Alison, I mean, what sort of did this strike a negative chord, or did you think that's not a bad idea? How did you feel about it?
Well, I guess I can only speak reflecting on my own experiences, and it is a topic that gets debated quite a lot in my business, and I think there are two sides to the coin. So I can absolutely see some benefits of working from home. It obviously saves time for the person in commuting and really does allow some headspace to concentrate on something. But what we find is the flip side for the people maybe who are not working at home is that they don't get any headspace because they're kind of picking up quite a lot of the phone calls, the client contact for those people who are at home. And I can definitely sympathise with the communications issue. You know, if you're working with somebody, you can see they're struggling with something that you wouldn't be able to see at home. So I think it's easy for people to get isolated at home. it's obviously, well, it's less creative, I think, not to be able to look face to face and be able to debate something. And so I think there are, pros and cons. And so we've come down on the side of that individual teams set their own rules and guidelines.
Yeah.
And with the, company that's based on fairness and commitment, that works because I think they can work out between themselves the days when they do need to be at home and the days when they should be in the office.
Do you think, Alex, do you think that that there's still a sort of very negative attitude to people who work home? I mean, I remember situations not so many years ago when I was having a conversation with a colleague where they said, "Oh, so and so's working at home," and they rolled their eyes, in a sort of ironic way, as if they're off skiving. Do you think there's a sort of a negative connotation?
I think some people do have that view. Maybe that says a bit more about them and what they would be doing if they were at home. I don't know. Perhaps they're judging by their own standards. I think it does depend, though, on the individual. Some people I know who work from home work really well from home, really motivated. It works much better for them. I have to say, when I worked from home quite a lot, I did go a bit mad sometimes because I was living on my own. I didn't see anybody for ages.
Yes.
So when I did go into the office, it was fantastic to see everyone, and I wanted to chat, and it was great. So I think it's a tricky one because it does depend a bit on the person. I mean, interestingly, one of the reasons why our incubators are popular is that the people there who are obviously running their own business and they're working on their own, they've got the facilities to work from home, but they don't want to because for whatever reason they feel that coming into an office, they feel a bit more motivated. They actually get up, take their pyjamas off, put their suit on, come in, and they've also got people around to talk to, and that they feel more kind of worky when they're in the office.
Yeah.
You've also got the other side of that, which is that I think being able to chat to people sometimes helps with certain aspects of what you're working in. There's something more creative sometimes about being able to talk to people and bounce ideas off them, get feedback, that when you're on your own at home, you sort of can't, get out of one particular way of thinking. You just sort of get a bit stuck.
I'm with you. I run my own business from home, so I've probably already gone mad so some time ago and just not realised it. But I certainly understand what you mean. I mean, there's also a stage of life thing, isn't there? That if you that depending on your sort of social situation, like if you're single or you're married, things like that. I mean, some people can't stand working at home because actually they can't concentrate. And because of their particular setup isn't conducive to doing all that. I mean, surely, Alison, the ideal thing is a sensible mix rather than some sort of blanket ban or blanket, permission on these things.
I think you're absolutely right. It might differ on a day by day, hour by hour basis, really, as to what works.
Yeah. And Vicky, I mean, what's your experience?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said, really. I just don't think there's a hard or fast rule, and I do think it's a massive step back by Yahoo to say no more working from home, everybody's got to stay in. I mean, it seems preposterous, to be honest, that somebody should take that type of sort of archaic view when clearly there are some huge benefits that you can gain. I think one of the things that I love about the way that business in general and all sorts of, schools, all sorts of different things that are developing these days, is that there is inherent flexibility now, as opposed to rules and regulations which stifle all sorts of people and all sorts of areas for all the wrong reasons. So I think the retrospective step is everybody's got to start coming into the office, as opposed to one being better than the other. It's that a rigorous rule which was broken a good few years ago now. To install a rule that doesn't make sense across the piece just seems madness.
It seems from where we're going with this discussion that, this is probably something that's just too well entrenched now. That you can't go back. There's been a certain amount of flexibility. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not so good. But there's a sensible decision to be made with sensible management. We talked about similar in a way to a trend like social enterprise, where I think again that's an irreversible trend now. That's happening because it makes people feel good about what they do, and you can see the sort of health and well-being sort of attitude to these things just kind of percolating through a lot of these debates now.
I remember when I was running a team, and we'd got some guys that were fantastic, at 3 o'clock in the morning in the bar with very, very important clients, and other people that were there doing reports at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And actually, that was brilliant. I needed both of those different types of people in that team.
Yes.
And as long as each knew, understood and respected the role that the other played,
yes,
and recognised their place within that, then it worked absolutely extraordinarily well. I could have said everybody's got to be in at 8 and everybody's got to be in the bar until 12.
Yeah.
Actually, why force somebody to be in the bar at 12 when they need to be in their bed?
Yes.
When you equally know they'll be there at 8 o'clock in the morning having breakfast with the clients that are equally there having breakfast.
Well, I know which I'd rather be.
Well, the problem, of course, is when you're the boss, you end up having to do both. So, you just become a 24-hour sort of person. But
anyway,
it's flexibility, I think, these days, isn't it, that's required.
Absolutely. So thank you to Vicky, Alison and Alex on our debate. Now we're going to listen a little bit to Janice O'Neill again. I mean, she was talking about the less formal networking group, and now we're going to hear a little bit about the Hertfordshire Business Club. Again, Vicky went out and talked to her about that, and so she told us about the Hertfordshire Business Club. Here we go.
That is sort of the parent club of the Buzz. That is a network club which is a much more formal one, where you pay a membership and you attend regularly every month, and that meets on a Tuesday in Hatfield. So we believe that's really central to the whole of Hertfordshire. And then during the month, we have about a fortnight later, we have another meeting, and it might be speed networking, or it might be a social event, or it might be another kind of business talk that the members have asked for. That is more formal. You do have to stand up and say a minute about your business, and it's much, much better after that to have the one-to-ones and follow it through. It's a different approach to networking, but it's a 3-hour event on a Tuesday night, and it's actually very hard work, but oh my goodness, the pleasure at the end when you realise you've achieved so much. It's full-on networking.
And in that sort of event, what sort of numbers are you looking at in terms of the number of businesses that you'd come across through that sort of event?
In the evening one, in the club, we're hoping to have about 50 to 60 members turning up at each meeting, whereas the Business Buzz, it's probably averaging about 35 people.
So it does sound to me as though we all agree that networking is a great way of developing business. It doesn't matter what sort of networking you do, there is something out there for you, whether it's really informal and it's a quick coffee and a chat, or whether it's much more formalised, it's much more business footing and there's more business learning to be. There is really something for everybody out there in Hertfordshire at the moment.
I agree, but I think you have to find your own strategy for dealing with it. You can't just belong to 16 network clubs. It doesn't work that way. You have to find out what works for you. And some people can get up desperately early in the morning and go every single week. Some people can't do that. They have other commitments early in the morning. Some people can do a networking thing at lunchtime. Some people only have the evening, or they can't give the evening. So you have to find out what works for you and where you feel comfortable. But I think you have to keep going at it. You can't just do it 2 or 3 times. You have to build trust. You have to build a relationship. And if once you've built that relationship, it's so special. They're business friends and you trust them. And I think trust is the big word in networking. Because if I want to recommend somebody, it would be awful if they were the most useless person. So if you get to know somebody really well and you trust them, how good is that you can recommend on their business?
And we all know that personal recommendation is by far the best advertising.
Yes, we do. We know that personal recommendation is by far the best advertising, and that was Janice O'Neill again talking about the Hearts Business Club, and I gather, and this moves very smoothly, unintentionally smoothly, into the element of our show, which is about the diary roundup, because that is actually one of the first items you've got to tell us about, Vicky.
That's right. So the Hearts Business Club has its next meeting on Tuesday, coming up this week, the 5th of March. It's at the Beale Hotel at Hatfield. Starts at 6 o'clock. They have a guest speaker who's a PR specialist, a lady called Shelley Doyle, who's...
I know Shelley. Right.
Oh, do you?
Yes,
I don't know her, but I understand she's a very good speaker. She's one of the team at Present PR, and I'm sure she's going to give loads of insight into how to get your name out there and how to get media attention. So that's the Beale Hotel, Hatfield, 6 o'clock, the Hearts Business Club's next meeting.
Right, and we should actually say that you can get some of these. You can get these announcements on air by following our Twitter feed and talking to us at Twitter. We haven't mentioned Twitter as much this week, but it's at RV the Business, RV for Radio Verulam, the Business. We're building up. We've gone up, our Twitter audience, Vicky's gone up by about sort of 60 or 70% in the last 2 or 3 weeks. We're starting to get a bit of momentum there. We're regularly tweeting and doing all those things, so it's really good to see lots of people retweeting our stuff. Let me tell you about one of them that I saw on Twitter, which was the annual general meeting of the St Albans District Chamber of Commerce, and that also is taking place in the coming week, Thursday the 7th of March, starts at 6 p.m, just very close to us at the Discovery Centre on Oaklands College, the Smallford campus, not quite so close as I thought, but and that's also just the annual general meeting, followed by a networking and a buffet supper. So that will be happening. And what else is on the list, Vicky?
I think we have also got notice of a breakfast meeting. Now, this looks, I don't know whether this is a typo. This is talking about a breakfast club meeting in May.
Right.
I can't think that we're planning that far ahead, are we?
Well, it might be, because the guest speaker is Anne Main MP,
right.
and she's a very busy woman, difficult to get hold of, I understand.
Right, so if you're planning your networking really far in advance, this is happening on Wednesday the 8th of May. It's at the Old Albanians Rugby Club on the Harpenden Road. They've got Anne Main as the MP, so they're expecting it to get booked up quite quickly. And that's actually sponsored by Crohn's and Colitis. So do go online and check that out. That's a business breakfast, 7:30am on the 8th of May. For all those fantastic forward planners.
Yes, that's right.
It's really good.
Amongst you, yes. We'll probably mention that a couple of times before it happens anyway, because it's that far away. Nearly as far away is a meeting on the 26th of April at Sopwell House and Hotel and Country Club about the current economic outlook. Phil Eckersley of the Bank of England is here to tell us about what's actually going to be happening. Are we going up? Are we going down? Are we just bumping along the bottom? All that sort of thing. Anyway, so that's on the 26th of April. Vicky, just in 10 seconds or so, I mean, what's the thing you've probably learnt most from the show this week?
Well, to be honest, I need to get out shopping more, because it sounds like I've got to get myself down to Raindrops on Roses. It sounds like a wonderful, wonderful shop. I think the whole social enterprise thing is absolutely fantastic. But just a little thing, actually. If there are people out there that have got events or activities or things that you think the listeners might be interested in, please tweet, please, or email us. All the information's out there, and then we can tell you more about. We can tell all the listeners more about everything that's going on in and around Hertfordshire.